Eleanor's from Wales. She's going to talk about Welsh institutions implementing gender ideology. And thank you so much for coming, Eleanor, and over to you.
Thank you. I'm just going to add that I did actually join the Green Party, and I have actually voted for Ali for precisely all the reasons that Claudine has mentioned. Today I'm going to talk about, sorry, I'm going to be reading from my hymn sheet, guys, so I'll be looking down. I'm going to be talking about the Welsh Government's intention to implement an LGBTQ+ action plan, which, rather like self-ID in Scotland and what was unsuccessfully pushed in England, it attempts to enshrine the concept of gender identity in policy and therefore law. It's quite a comprehensive document, so I'm just going to concentrate today on the human rights section of the proposal and how it relates to sex-based rights and protected characteristics, and whether it's, as an action plan, it's even lawful. This issue has been covered previously on these webinars by Marie-Josephe and the LGB Alliance Cymru, and they are very much active in working to can the plan, as they call it. But with a deadline looming and an apparent impasse when it comes to listening to opposing views, we're once again in a position where we need voices, as many as possible, to get involved. This has been quietly stewing away from public scrutiny in particular, and it's interesting to me as somebody who's been aware of this issue for a few years now, that I had no idea our government was attempting to bring this in by stealth until relatively recently. The drafting of the plan was effectively outsourced to Stonewall Cymru, and the expert panel, in quotes, that was consulted was drawn exclusively from supporters of gender ideology, making the process entirely partisan. Organisations trying to provide input for women, LGBT and religious interests have discovered that Stonewall yet again dictates the policy and find themselves locked out of the process. They've been knocking on the government's door, both literally and figuratively, yet they've all been brushed off or ignored. Why is this? Well, likely because the plan is legally flawed and attempting to circumvent both the Equality Act and human rights laws. As a fellow signatory with a greater legal mind than me has pointed out, it is arguable that the process is tainted from the beginning, because any policy change that may affect the activities of those in another protected class requires that class to be consulted. For example, in section 149 of the Equality Act, it states, the need to advance equality of opportunity between persons who share a relevant protected characteristic and persons who do not. So that if any time you are trying to advance any one equality of opportunity, you have to check every other protected characteristic and whether there's going to be any impacts on those other parties. So therefore you have to have due regard in particular to the need of, or the need to, remove or minimize disadvantages suffered by persons who share a relevant protected characteristic. And you must encourage persons who share that relevant protected characteristic to participate in public life or in any other activity in which participation by such persons is disproportionately low. So what that means is that, we're talking about things like, sports, specific interest groups, spaces, as we all know, but this can also apply to religious affiliations whose limitations are also dictated by their sex class. These groups must be consulted if there is any suggestion of negative impact on their current rights. And how this is done is through an equality impact assessment, of which there is no evidence of one having been carried out in this situation. This, I believe, renders the process misleading and unlawful if it does not consult in full all the parties representing others with said protected characteristics. And this is even more curious a position because Wales doesn't have as much devolved power, as say Scotland. So how is it going to attempt to, in their words, seek to devolve powers in relation to gender recognition? Does it mean that the Assembly is going to somehow attempt to override Westminster's position on self-ID? And more than that, challenge laws that supersede any regional or devolved law or policy? These are the Human Rights Act, the European Convention on Human Rights, the UN conventions in general, such as CEDAW, and the Convention on the Rights of the Child. All of these deal in the protected characteristics of sex and religion, but not gender. Any change would have to be UK-wide because we can't change those policies on a regional basis because the human rights laws and the Equality Act override regional power. So this consultation should and must follow the current laws. Otherwise, protected groups, women, LGBT groups, religious groups, pregnant women, for example, will suffer discrimination. So are they proposing to ask Westminster to remove Wales from the Equalities Act or change the devolution settlement? Would this have to be done through changing Government of Wales Act? I can't personally answer these. These are areas that obviously need to be questioned and explored, and neither can the plan. And we'll have to ask ourselves the question as to whether that's why they've been keeping the door shut on everybody that wants to ask these questions. Nor does it say how it will be implemented legally. So again, how is this going to go forward, basically? What is it they're trying to do, and what is it they're trying not to let us see or be a part of when they shut the door on our questions? So looking at the rights, in particular, what rights are being asked for and how is the government proposing to create these rights? The plan aims to, in their words, vocally defend and promote their rights and dignity to take, vocally defends those with the gender identity and promote their rights and dignity to take a full equal role in Welsh society, because trans people in Wales would like to see the Welsh Government go above and beyond the actions of the UK Government in protecting and furthering trans people rights. So here again, they want to separate themselves off from the UK and its position, the rest of England and its position. What they're not saying explicitly, yet looking for in this plan, is the right to self-ID under law as a human right to override sex and sexual orientation with gender identity. Trans and non-binary people have exactly the same human rights as everyone and may even share some of the additional protected characteristics, but unless we're talking gender reassignment, which is for the very few who have a certificate, gender identity and gender are not protected. The GRC creates a legal fiction to protect a tiny minority of people, but this cannot work as a legal definition. But this is what they're trying to push. And one of our Welsh councillors recently on social media let it slip, possibly accidentally, who knows. But he said, the right to self-identify as who they are without jumping through endless hoops, such as needing a medical diagnosis, having a medical report detailing their treatment and providing evidence of having lived in their acquired gender for a period of time. So this statement is clearly stating that they want to eliminate any gatekeeping with regards to individuals being able to change their gender, therefore their sex, because these have to be conflated in law, on their say-so. The result is a document that advocates for an environment where gender self-identification trumps the protected characteristics, even though there is no definition in law of these terms and could possibly even put us in breach of the human rights laws. So what's been done so far? As previously noted, organisations such as Marie-Josephe, LGBT Cymru, Lesbian Labour, amongst a few, have been active in challenging the plan. You can visit their websites to take a further look at what they've been doing. We will, if people can either just put their respective websites in the chat, or we can do it later. Please go and have a look at what they're doing to try and I don't know, get involved somehow, even though it's proving to be incredibly difficult to have a conversation with anybody, any of our assembly members. What's been done so far? They've also organised a rally, which took place last Tuesday, proved to be pretty successful. Around 150 people turned up at the Senedd, which is our parliament. It was the groups LGBT Alliance, Cymru, Merched Cymru, Lesbian Labour and Labour Women's Declaration that were there that mainly spoke, covering all sorts of, you know, diverse backgrounds. The only Assembly member to attend was a Conservative, Andrew R.T. Davies. No local press covered it. And this also makes, I don't know, for me, when only Conservative members seem to get involved in this issue, it feels like a forced fulfilling prophecy, because we find ourselves inadvertently allied with political opponents in so many other ways, and then we're accused of being right-wing fascists. What can be done? I've been having conversations with various people, and what we want to do and what we'll endeavour to do is try and explore the legal issues further and actually see whether there's grounds for judicial review, because on the face of it, it really does look like an illegal process. And what you can do, WHRC will be putting something up on the website regarding how you can submit concerns, because there's a closing date of the 22nd of October. Prior to that, you can submit your concerns to the Welsh Assembly. You don't have to be from Wales to get involved. The concerns can be about anything related to any impacts, but in particular concerns around protected spaces and safeguarding. We will put suggestions on the website, and you can take them, and you can either just copy and paste, or you can amend them accordingly. But we will email out some information once that goes live.